Commander Jathara stood at the observation deck of the Crossroads station and watched the human vessel approach with barely concealed disdain in her golden eyes. The ship was small and ungainly compared to the sleek warships of the Valkyrie Empire, looking more like a cargo hauler than a diplomatic transport. Worthy of such an important meeting, she flexed her clawed hands and felt the familiar weight of her ceremonial armor against her scaled skin. This meeting was supposed to be historic. The first formal petition from humanity to join the Galactic Concordat. But Jathara had reviewed the files on these newcomers and found little to impress. Her humans were weak by every measure that mattered. Their homeworld gravity was barely 60% of Velkar. Their bite force was pathetic. They had no natural weapons beyond blunt nails and weak teeth. They could not even see in the ultraviolet spectrum that most civilized species took for granted. Her second-in-command, Corvin, stepped beside her and rumbled in their native tongue. "The prey things arrive, Commander. Show respect." "Corvin," Jathara replied. Though her hearts were not in the rebuke, she had fought in 17 campaigns across 9 systems and earned her position through blood and honor. So these soft creatures, from their isolated little world, seemed like children playing at galactic politics. The docking procedures completed, and Jathara made her way to the reception hall with her 4 warrior honor guard, each one a veteran who stood over 7 feet tall and could rip through standard hull plating with their bare claws. The human delegation entered from the opposite side. 5 individuals, 4 in what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire, and 1 in obvious security gear. Though calling it security seemed generous when the human barely reached 6 feet and carried a weapon that looked like a child's toy compared to Valkyrie plasma cannons. Lead human stepped forward with a smile that showed his flat, herbivore-like teeth and extended his hand in the primitive gesture their files had described. "Commander Jathara, I'm Ambassador Marcus Chen. It's an honor to finally meet you." She took his hand carefully, worried she might break the fragile bones, and felt surprised at the firmness of his grip. Though it was still nothing compared to Valkyrie strength. "Ambassador Chen, welcome to the Crossroads." The formal greetings continued, and Jathara found herself studying the humans more closely. They moved with surprising grace despite their weak frames. Their eyes tracked everything in the room with constant vigilance. And beneath the diplomatic smiles, she sensed something else. Though she could not quite identify what the welcoming banquet was, an exercise in careful cuisine, with dishes prepared to accommodate the biochemistries of 17 different species. Jathara ate sparingly from the protein selections, her metabolism requiring frequent small meals of dense nutrition rather than the massive feasts some species preferred. She noticed the humans eating with methodical determination, consuming items that other species left untouched, including some of the preserved vegetables that the Creepy delegation had declared borderline toxic. "Your people have strong stomachs, Ambassador," she commented. Watching Marcus consume something that smelled of fermentation, Marcus smiled again. That strange expression humans made. "We evolved as opportunistic feeders, Commander on Earth. You eat what you can get, or you don't eat at all." "Earth," Jathara repeated, accessing her neural database. "Your files claim it is a death world, but I suspect that is exaggeration. Every species believes their homeworld is uniquely challenging." "Maybe," Marcus said mildly. "Though we do have a saying, everything on Earth is either poisonous, venomous, or trying to eat you, and sometimes all 3. Before Jathara could respond, the station's alarm systems erupted in a cacophony of warning tones, and the lighting shifted to emergency. Read her neural implant, connected immediately to the security network, and fed her the tactical situation in microseconds. 15 Kresh Dominion raiders had breached the station through a fake supply ship. They were heavily armed, and they were spreading through the civilian section. Scorvin and her other warriors were on their feet instantly. Weapons drawn, combat instincts taking over. Most of the other delegates scattered toward the designated panic rooms, which was the sensible response for non-combatants. Hathara expected the humans to flee as well, given their obvious physical limitations. But Marcus and his security officer were moving in the opposite direction, toward the sounds of weapons fire and screaming civilians. "Ambassador, the safe rooms are that way," she called out, genuinely concerned. Despite her earlier disdain, Marcus paused and looked back at her with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than his youthful face suggested. "We know, Commander, but there are people who need help getting there." His security officer was already checking his weapon with practiced efficiency and speaking calmly into a comm unit. "Station security. This is Sergeant Rodriguez with the human delegation requesting tactical feed and coordination protocols." Jathara felt a strange sensation in her primary heart, something between confusion and curiosity. These soft prey creatures were moving toward danger instead of away from it, which contradicted everything she thought. She understood about survival instincts. The station shuddered as an explosion rocked the western commercial district, and her tactical feeds showed Kresh warriors butchering their way through panicked civilians. She made her decision in a fraction of a second. "Corvin, take position at the central junction. You two, guard the delegate corridors. You, with me." She barked orders to her team, then turned to Marcus. "If you insist on this foolishness, human, at least coordinate with professionals." Marcus nodded, his expression serious but showing no fear. "We'll hold the eastern corridor, you take west?" The question hung in the air for a moment while Jathara processed it. This weak, fragile creature from a backwater world was offering to hold a defensive position against Kresh raiders. The same raiders who had terrorized 3 sectors and whose warriors stood 8 feet tall with natural armor plating. She should have refused, should have ordered him to safety, should have laughed at the absurdity. Instead, she found herself saying, "Agreed, but stay behind cover, Ambassador. Your bones will break if a Kresh so much as looks at you wrong." Marcus smiled that strange human smile again and checked something on his weapon that made a soft mechanical sound. "We'll manage. Commander, my people have been dealing with things that want to kill us for a very long time." Then he and Sergeant Rodriguez moved off toward the eastern corridor with smooth, economical movements that spoke of training and experience. Jathara watched them go and felt that strange sensation in her heart as Corvan rumbled beside her. "They will die quickly, perhaps," Jathara said. But something in the way the humans moved, the calm certainty in Marcus's voice, the complete absence of panic or hesitation, made her wonder if her second-in-command might be wrong. She pushed the thought aside and activated her plasma rifle. There were raiders to kill and civilians to protect, and she could worry about the puzzling humans later. Assuming they survived the next hour, the battle for the Crossroads station had begun. And Jathar had no idea that everything she thought she knew about humanity was about to be proven catastrophically wrong. The first Kresh warrior Jathara encountered died quickly. She moved with the speed and precision of her species, her claws finding the gap in its armor before it could fully register her presence. And the raider collapsed in a spraying pool of green blood that hissed against the station's deck. Platin Corvan and the other Velkari warriors fought with similar efficiency in their assigned zones, each kill clean and quick. This was what her people had evolved for, the explosive violence of apex predators. And for the first 20 minutes, Jathara felt confident the raiders would be eliminated. The 4 station reinforcements arrived. Her tactical feed showed the human positions in the eastern corridor, and she checked it periodically, expecting to see their life signs wink out or their position overrun. But instead, the feed showed something puzzling. The humans were alive and the crash. Advance had stalled. She killed another raider and moved to flank a third when her comm crackled with Marcus's voice. Calm and unhurried despite the weapon's fire audible in the background. "Commander, we've got 6 hostiles moving through the maintenance shafts toward your position, routing you the coordinates now." The data appeared in her neural display, and Jathara adjusted her position. Just as 3 Crash warriors dropped from an overhead access panel, her heart raced with the thrill of combat, but also with the question of how the humans had detected the flanking maneuver when her own sensors had missed it, confirmed kills. "Ambassador," she replied tersely, dispatching the raiders with brutal efficiency. "How did you know?" "Sergeant Rodriguez heard them in the ductwork," Marcus answered simply. "Enhanced audio pickup in our helmets. Plus, Rodriguez has very good ears." Jathara filed that information away. Humans compensating for sensory weakness with technology was reasonable enough, though she wondered what very good ears meant for a species that could barely hear into the ultrasonic range. The fighting continued, and Jathara began to notice a pattern in the human tactics that confused her warrior instincts. Whenever the crash pushed hard toward their position, the humans would retreat, fall back to new cover, use angles and crossfire instead of meeting force with force. It seemed almost cowardly, this refusal to hold ground. But the tactical results were undeniable. Crash bodies were piling up in the eastern corridor, and the humans remained alive and functional. 2 hours passed. Then 4 Jathara's muscles were beginning to burn with fatigue from the sustained combat. Her body built for explosive speed and power rather than extended engagements. And she could hear Corvin's breathing becoming labored over the comm. The Valkyrie were sprint predators, and this prolonged battle was pushing them toward their physiological limits. But the raiders seemed endless, and the reinforcements from Concordat Command were still 43 hours away, according to the latest update. She checked on the human positions again and felt a spike of disbelief. They were still moving, still fighting, showing no signs of the exhaustion that was making her own limbs heavy. "Ambassador," she called over the comm, trying to keep the fatigue from her voice. "Status report?" "We're good, Commander," Marcus replied, and his breathing sounded elevated but controlled. "Ammunition at 60%, no injuries. Rodriguez wants to push toward the civilian shelters in Section 7. You have been fighting for 4 hours," Jathara said, unable to keep the incredulity from her tone. "Your people must be exhausted." There was a pause before Marcus answered, and she thought she heard something like dark amusement in his voice. "Commander, we evolved chasing down prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. 4 hours is just getting warmed up." Jathara wanted to dismiss this as bravado, but the evidence contradicted her assumptions. One of her warriors had already rotated to rest, their muscles cramping from overuse, while the humans continued their methodical, patient dismantling of the crash attack. She killed 2 more raiders and felt her secondary heart laboring to supply oxygen to her burning muscles. The station's gravity was slightly lower than Velkar standard, but her body was screaming for rest. The tactical feed showed a crisis developing in the northern hub, where a group of civilian delegates, including several younglings, had been cut off from the safe rooms. Jathara made the calculations instantly and knew that her team could reach them, but barely, and they would be in no condition to fight afterward. "All units, converge on northern hub," she commanded. "Civilian rescue priority." Corvin's response came back ragged with exhaustion. "Commander, we are nearly spent. Another sustained engagement may be beyond our capability." The words hurt to hear, but they were true. Valkyrie physiology was not designed for marathon battles. They were made for short, decisive strikes. And this grinding combat was the worst possible scenario for her people. Marcus's voice cut into the command channel without invitation. which would normally be a breach of protocol. But Jathara found she did not care. "Commander, redirect to the western approach. We'll handle the northern hub rescue." "Negative." "Ambassador," Jathara snapped, her pride stung despite her exhaustion. "Your team cannot possibly." "Commander," Marcus interrupted, and his voice carried an edge of steel beneath the diplomatic courtesy. "With respect, you're running on fumes and we both know it. We can do this. Trust me." Jathara wanted to argue, but her body was betraying her. Her vision narrowing at the edges from oxygen debt. Her hands trembling with muscular fatigue. She had been awake and fighting for nearly 30 hours with only brief moments of rest. And her species simply was not built for this. She watched her tactical display as the human signatures moved toward the northern hub with steady, controlled precision. No hesitation, despite the concentration of crash forces between them and the civilians. "How?" she whispered, not even sure if her cum was active. "How are you still functional?" Rodriguez's voice answered, rougher than Marcus's, but equally calm. "Ma'am, humans back on Earth used to hunt animals by literally just walking after them for days. We tracked them, followed them. Never let them rest until they just gave up and died from exhaustion. We called it persistence hunting," Marcus added. "And it's in our DNA. Our bodies are built to just keep going when every sane predator would quit." Jathara watched the feed as the humans engaged the crash forces. And again she saw those strange tactics: retreat when pressed, use of cover and angles, wasting the enemy's energy while conserving their own. No honor or glory in it, but terrible efficiency. One of the humans took a glancing hit that would have dropped most species, and she saw him stumble, recover, and continue fighting. The medical readouts showed a cracked rib and muscle damage, but the human kept moving as if pain was merely an inconvenience. "Sergeant Rodriguez is injured," she called out. "He needs medical attention." "Negative." "Commander," Rodriguez replied, his voice tight but functional. "Pain is just information. I can still fight." The words made no sense to Jathara's warrior culture, which valued honor and courage, but also recognized the wisdom of knowing one's limits. This casual dismissal of injury seemed almost insane. The humans breached the northern hub and began extracting civilians with methodical patience, covering each other, moving the frightened delegates with calm reassurance despite the ongoing firefight. 12 hours into the siege, Jathara could barely stand. Her entire team was operating at perhaps 30% capacity, surviving more on tactical experience than physical ability. While the humans seemed barely diminished, the crash forces pulled back to regroup, and Jathara took the opportunity to check on the human position directly. She found Marcus and Rodriguez posted at a defensive choke point, their armor scorched and dented, but their eyes were still alert and their movements steady. "You should be dead," she said bluntly. Too tired for diplomacy, Marcus smiled that strange human expression. "We're from Earth. Commander, should be dead is pretty much our species motto." Before Jathara could respond, the station sensors screamed a new alert, and her blood went cold despite her exhaustion. The Kresh had deployed their war champion, a 12-foot monster of enhanced muscle and armor plating that was effectively a living tank. Beast emerged from the smoke and debris with a roar that shook the deck plating, and Jathara felt her predator instincts scream at her to run. This was a creature that could tear her apart with casual ease, even when she was fresh and rested. War Champion's eyes fixed on her, and it bellowed a challenge in the Kresh tongue. Single combat, as was their Wazathara's pride and honor, demanded she accept despite her exhaustion. She was Valkyrie. She was a warrior. She would not shame her people by refusing. She stepped forward on trembling legs and raised her weapon, knowing she was going to die, but determined to die, while Marcus's hand caught her arm gently. "Commander, you don't have to do this." "I do," she said simply. "It is who I am." She pulled away and moved to meet the war champion, her body screaming in protest, her vision blurring with fatigue. But her honor intact. The fight was brutal and short. She was simply too exhausted to match the fresh champion. And within minutes, she was on the deck, bleeding from a dozen wounds, while the massive Kresh warrior stood over her in triumph. Through fading consciousness, Jathara saw Marcus step forward and heard the war champion's mocking laugh as it turned toward this new, pathetically small opponent. "Why don't you flee, human?" The champion rumbled in Galactic common. Marcus's reply was quiet, but it carried clearly. The Kresh war champion stared at Marcus with something that might have been amusement in its predatory eyes. This tiny human, barely reaching the creature's chest, standing unarmed before a being that could crush starship hull plating with its bare hands. And somehow showing no fear at all, Jathara tried to rise from where she lay bleeding, tried to warn Marcus that he was about to die in the most pointless way imaginable. But her body refused to obey, and she could only watch as the champion took a step toward the human. "You are prey," the champion rumbled, its voice like grinding stone. "Small and weak and fragile. You cannot win this fight. So why don't you flee while I still allow it?" Marcus stood perfectly still, and when he spoke his voice carried no anger or fear, only a cold certainty that made the hair on Jathara's neck stand up despite her species having lost most of their hair millions of years ago. "Because you wouldn't make it 10 steps, the champion laughed, a horrible sound like bones breaking. "You threaten me, little thing? What will you do? Chase me?" "I am Kresh, I am Apex, I am prey," Marcus interrupted, and the word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "You just don't know it yet." Jathara watched as Marcus began to move in a slow circle around the champion, his movements economical and precise. And she realized with growing horror that he was not preparing to fight. He was preparing to hunt. "Let me explain something about my species," Marcus said conversationally, as if discussing the weather rather than facing down a creature that could tear him in half. "We evolved on a planet that tried very, very hard to kill us megafauna that weighed tons. Predators with fangs and claws that make you look cuddly. Diseases that could wipe out entire populations. And an environment that swung between freezing and boiling with disturbing regularity." The champion tracked Marcus's movement but seemed uncertain now, thrown off by this strange prey that would not flee or fight. "Your world made you weak. You have no claws, no fangs, no armor." "Exactly," Marcus agreed, still circling. "We had none of those things." "So, do you know what we did instead?" Rodriguez had moved to a flanking position, his weapon trained on the champion but not firing, and Jathara understood they were working together with the kind of coordination that came from years of practice. "We learned to run," Marcus continued, his voice taking on an almost hypnotic quality. "Not sprint like you predators do. That explosive speed that burns out after a few minutes, no. We learned to run for hours, for days if necessary." "Madness," the champion growled. But it had stopped advancing. "We would pick an animal, something bigger and stronger and faster than us, and we would just start following it," Marcus said. And Jathara could hear something ancient and terrible in his words. It would run away, of course. Using all that superior speed and strength, it would put kilometers between us and think it was safe. Marcus smiled, but there was nothing friendly in the expression. "And then it would see us again, still coming, still following, never stopping, so it would run again, and again we would fall behind. And again we would catch up." The champion shifted its weight, and Jathara saw something she never thought she would see in a Kresh warrior's eyes. The beginning of doubt. This would go on for hours, then days. Marcus continued relentlessly. The animal would be exhausted, its muscles failing, its body shutting down from heat stroke and dehydration, and we would still be there. Still walking, still coming. Eventually, it would collapse. Unable to run anymore, barely able to breathe. Marcus's voice was soft now, but somehow more terrifying for it. And we would walk up to it and kill it with rocks or sharpened sticks. Because that's all we needed. It was already beaten, not by strength or speed, but by simple, stubborn refusal to quit. The champion took an involuntary step backward, and Marcus smiled again. We called them persistence hunts, and we did it to animals that could stomp us flat. Because we understood something that you apex predators never learned. What? The champion asked, and its voice was no longer mocking. Being the strongest or fastest doesn't matter if you can't outlast your enemy, Marcus said. We turned being weak into a weapon. We made our prey spend all their strength trying to escape us. While we just kept coming at a steady pace, our bodies could maintain forever. Jathara felt her understanding of humanity shift like tectonic plates. Rearranging, these were not weak prey creatures playing at being warriors. These were predators of a completely different type. Something the galaxy had never encountered before. You want to run from me? Marcus asked the champion. Go ahead, run at your top speed. Use all that muscle and power. Get as far away as you can. I'll wait here while you do. The champion did not move, and then I'll follow you. Marcus continued. Not running, just walking at a sustainable pace, and in a few hours. Maybe a day, maybe 2. You'll realize you can't shake me. I'll be there every time you stop to rest. Every time you think you've gotten away. Rodriguez spoke up from his flanking position, his voice carrying the same cold certainty. My ancestors hunted woolly mammoths to extinction creatures that weighed 6 tons and had tusks that could gore a tank. And you know what weapon we used? What? The champion asked, sounding almost hypnotized. Patience, Rodriguez said. We just walked after them until they were too tired to fight back. Then we killed them with pointed sticks. Marcus nodded. We hunted the megafauna of our world to extinction. Not through strength, but through sheer bloody-minded refusal to give up saber-toothed cats. Dire wolves, short-faced bears, every apex predator that thought it ruled Earth learned the same lesson. What lesson? Jathara heard herself ask, her voice weak from her injuries. Marcus looked at her with those ancient eyes. That humans don't stop. We can't stop. We don't know how it's coded into our DNA from a million years of being too weak to fight fair. So we fought dirty instead. We evolved as pursuit predators in the truest sense, he continued. Turning back to the champion, our bodies regulate temperature through sweating, which lets us run in heat that would kill you. Our bipedal stance is inefficient for speed, but perfect for endurance. Our brains are wired to track and predict movement patterns over days or weeks. The champion was backing away now, slowly but definitely retreating. This is a trick. No trick, Marcus said. Just honest truth? You asked why I don't flee? Because fleeing is what prey does, and I'm not prey, you are, Rodriguez added from his position. We domesticated wolves into dogs by being the only species crazy enough to adopt apex predators as pets. We turned the most dangerous predators on our planet into our friends because we're just that relentless at forming pack bonds. We survived ice ages that killed everything else, Marcus said, counting on his fingers. We survived plagues that wiped out 2/3 of our population. We survived our own nuclear weapons when we were stupid enough to build them. We survived meteor impacts and supervolcanoes and every natural disaster our planet could throw at us. And do you know why we survived all of that? He asked the champion. The Kresh warrior said nothing, just continued its slow retreat. Because we refused to quit. Marcus answered his own question. Because when everything else laid down and died, humans just got angry and stubborn and kept going out of pure spite, if nothing else. Jathara watched as the most fearsome warrior she had ever seen continued backing away from an unarmed human who was explaining, in calm, reasonable tones, Why the champion was already dead if Marcus decided to make it so. So here's what's going to happen, Marcus said, his voice hardening. You're going to call off your raiders. You're going to release any hostages you've taken. And you're going to leave this station, because if you don't, I will hunt you, not kill you right here, he clarified. No. I'll hunt you. I'll follow your ship across the galaxy if necessary. I'll track you to whatever hole you hide in. And one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe a year from now, you'll wake up and I'll be there. The champion's retreat had brought it to the corridor's far end. You are one human you cannot. I'm never just one human. Marcus cut it off. We're pack hunters, remember? I have a whole species behind me. Billions of humans who share that same inability to quit you hurt one of us. You get all of us, and we will never, ever stop coming. Rodriguez spoke up again. Our motto back on Earth. Don't make us come over there, because once we commit to something, we see it through to the end, no matter how long it takes or what it costs. The station sensors pinged with new alerts. Concordat reinforcements had arrived early. Their ships dropping out of FTL around the station with weapons hot. The champion looked at the tactical displays, looked at Marcus, and made its decision. It activated a comm unit and barked orders in the Kresh tongue. And throughout the station, the raiders began withdrawing to their ships. But before leaving, the champion spoke one more time. This is not over. Human Marcus's smile was all teeth. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if today is the day I decide to cash in that threat. And the beautiful part, he added, I don't even have to do anything. Your own fear will be the weapon. Because now you understand what humans are. And that knowledge will haunt you. The champion fled, and Jathara let her head fall back against the deck plating, her mind reeling from what she had witnessed. This was not combat as she understood it. This was psychological warfare of a type she had never imagined. Jathara lay in the medical bay with regeneration, equipment working on her wounds while she watched the tactical displays with growing frustration. The Kresh Raiders had retreated to their ship as the war champion had ordered. But they had taken 17 hostages with them, including 3 younglings from various species. The Concordat battle group had the raider ship surrounded, their weapons charged and targeting solutions locked. The protocol was clear. No firing with live hostages aboard. Negotiation first, force only as last resort. Commander Telvara of the Concordat flagship was conducting negotiations. Through the comm channels and getting nowhere. The Kresh demanded safe passage and a 12-hour head start or they would begin executing. Hostages, Thuris flaws flexed in helpless anger against the medical bed's restraints. She was Valkyrie, a warrior, and being forced to lie still while others were in danger made her want to tear something apart. Marcus entered the medical bay with Sergeant Rodriguez and 2 other humans from their delegation, all of them looking warm but functional despite the extended combat they had endured. Commander, Marcus greeted her formally. How are you feeling? Like I was beaten by a war champion, she replied honestly. Which is exactly what happened. I should be grateful to be alive. Marcus nodded. You fought with honor. Commander, the Valkyrie reputation is well-earned. Not well-earned enough to win, Jathara said bitterly, then gestured at the tactical displays. And now we have this situation. The Kresh will kill those hostages the moment they think they are safe from pursuit. Yes, Marcus agreed, studying the displays with those calculating eyes. Which is why we need to get them out before the raiders leave. Jathara felt her secondary heart skip. The ship is surrounded. Any assault would be detected immediately, and the hostages would die before we breached the hull. A conventional assault. Yes, Marcus said, pulling up detailed schematics of the Kresh vessel. But my team has another approach we would like to propose. Rodriguez moved to the display controls. his injured ribs apparently not slowing him down despite medical scans showing they had not yet been fully treated, and highlighted several sections of the raider ship's damaged hull. The crushed ship took damage during their initial breach of the station, Rodriguez explained. These sections here, and here have compromised structural integrity. Atmosphere is holding, but barely. Radiation shielding is degraded, and the internal gravity plating is fluctuating. That makes those sections death traps, Zathara said. Not understanding where this was going, no rational being would try to move through them. Marcus smiled that human expression. Exactly, which is why the creche won't be guarding them, and why we can use them to insert a rescue team. Zathara accessed the detailed damage reports and felt her blood chill at what the humans were proposing. Ambassador, those sections have vacuum exposure, radiation levels that would kill most species in minutes, temperatures that fluctuate from freezing to boiling, and the structural collapse risk is rated at 73%. Yes, Marcus agreed calmly. It's dangerous, but it's also possible. It is suicide. Zathara corrected firmly. Rodriguez spoke up, his voice matter-of-fact. Ma'am, with respect. Humans have survived in hard vacuum for up to 15 seconds. We can tolerate radiation exposure that would liquefy most species. Our bodies regulate temperature across a wider range than almost any other sapient species. And we're really good at not dying in situations we absolutely should die in. One of the other humans, a woman named Chun, who shared Marcus's surname and was apparently his cousin, added to the discussion. Our EVA suits are rated for extended exposure to exactly these kinds of conditions. We train for worst-case scenario rescues because Earth's environment taught us that the worst case is usually what happens. Zathara wanted to dismiss this as insane bravado, but she remembered the past hours. Remembered humans fighting long after her own warriors were exhausted. Remembered Marcus facing down a war champion with nothing but words and winning through sheer psychological pressure. How long would this insertion take? She asked, hating herself for even considering it. Marcus ran calculations on the display. 8 hours to reach the hostage-holding area. Moving slowly to avoid detection, another 2 hours to extract them through the damaged sections. Accounting for the need to move civilians who aren't trained for zero gravity or hard vacuum. 10 hours, Zathara said. In conditions that would kill my warriors in minutes, Ambassador. I cannot allow. Commander, Marcus interrupted gently. You can't allow us? With respect, we're not asking permission. Those hostages need help. We can provide it, so we're going to try. The only question is whether you want to coordinate with us, or if we do this without. Concordat support. Zathara stared at him, recognizing the same stubborn determination she had seen when he faced the war champion. You would do this even if I ordered you not to? Yes, Marcus said simply, because it's the right thing to do. And because humans don't leave people behind if there's any chance of getting them out. It's one of our core cultural values across almost every human society. Rodriguez nodded agreement. We have a saying, no one left behind. It's not always possible to live up to it. But we try anyway, because the trying matters. Zathara made her decision, knowing she would likely regret it but unable to deny the logic or the courage. I will coordinate with Concordat Command. You will have our support. But if you get yourselves killed, I am telling your superiors, this was entirely your idea. Marcus smiled. Fair enough. Commander will try not to die, but if we do, at least it'll be in a really impressive way. The next hour was spent in detailed planning. The humans would use a small maintenance skiff to approach the damaged sections from an angle the crush sensors had blind spots. They would insert through a hull breach in teams of 2, extract the hostages in stages, and return them through the same dangerous routes as Zathara watched from the medical bay as the operation began. Unable to participate due to her injuries, but unwilling to look away, the human team moved with practiced efficiency. Their EVA suits looking bulky and primitive compared to Valkyrie equipment, but apparently functional. The first breach point was a jagged tear in the hull, where an explosion had peeled back armor plating. The humans squeezed through the gap into a corridor that had no gravity, no atmosphere, and radiation levels that made Jatharus' medical sensors scream warnings. Rodriguez's biometrics showed elevated stress markers, but nothing indicating immediate danger. His voice came over the comm channel, sounding slightly strained but controlled. Insertion successful. Moving to checkpoint Alpha. Hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Jathara watched the human life signs navigate through sections that should have been impassable. Through spaces where the structural integrity was so compromised that every movement risked triggering a catastrophic collapse. They encountered obstacles that would have stopped most rescue attempts. A section where the temperature had dropped to near absolute zero, forcing them to move with excruciating slowness to avoid thermal shock to their suits. A corridor where radiation was literally ionizing the air into visible plasma, requiring them to find an alternate route through maintenance ducts barely wide enough to crawl through. Chen's voice came over the comm during hour 6, calm despite the situation. We've located the hostages, 17 individuals, various species, all alive, but in poor condition. Beginning extraction procedures. The extraction was even more dangerous than the insertion because the hostages had no EVA training and only emergency suits that would barely function in these conditions. The humans had to essentially hand carry each civilian through the dangerous sections, moving with patience that seemed superhuman. One hostage, a creepy youngling, panicked during the zero-gravity transit and nearly killed them all by flailing and damaging their suits. Jathara watched Rodriguez calm the child with soft words while simultaneously preventing a structural collapse that his movements had nearly triggered. "You're okay, kid," Rodriguez said over an open channel so everyone could hear his calm voice. "I know it's scary. I know it hurts. But you're going to be fine. I've got you, and I'm not letting go. Understand?" The youngling's panicked movements stilled, and Rodriguez continued moving through the damaged sections with one arm securing the child and the other pulling them along. Handholds. Marcus' team had 3 civilians, Chun had 2, and the other human team members each managed groups as well. They moved through conditions that should have killed them, their suits registering damage and failure warnings that they calmly acknowledged and worked around. Hour 9 arrived, and the first group of hostages emerged from the damaged sections into the maintenance skiff. They were hypothermic, radiation sick, and traumatized, but alive. Hour 10 brought the last group, including Rodriguez with his young, creepy passenger. The sergeant's suit had multiple punctures that the emergency sealant was barely holding together. His radiation exposure was at dangerous levels, and his core temperature had dropped to the point where most species would be unconscious. But he kept moving until the youngling was safely aboard the skiff, only then allowing himself to collapse while Chun began emergency medical treatment. The skiff made it back to the Concordat vessels with all 17 hostages alive. The Kresh Raiders, realizing their leverage was gone. The emergency session of the Galactic Concordat Council convened 3 days after the siege of the Crossroads station ended, and Jathara attended as both a witness and an advocate. Her wounds still healing, but her mind sharp and focused. The council chamber held representatives from 47 species, each one powerful in their own right, each one accustomed to being apex predators or dominant forces in their respective corners of the galaxy. They looked at humanity's petition for membership with the casual dismissal of those who had never been truly challenged. Ambassador Chun stood before the council in his formal diplomatic attire, flanked by Sergeant Rodriguez and the other members of his delegation, all of them showing signs of their recent ordeal. but standing with quiet dignity. Counselor Vextar of the Crethi Dominion spoke first. His multiple eye stalks focused on Marcus with undisguised contempt. Humanity's petition is noted, but we see no reason to grant membership to such an obviously inferior species. They are weak. They have no natural defenses. Their technology is primitive compared to established Concordat standards. Several other counselors murmured agreement, and Jathara felt her temper rising. These fools had not seen what she had seen, had not fought beside humans, or watched them accomplish the impossible. Counselor Thrain of the Velkari Empire spoke next, her voice carrying the weight of Jathara's own people. Furthermore, humanity comes from a world they claim is a death world, but we have reviewed their files and find the classification questionable at best. Every species faces challenges on their homeworld. Marcus remained calm throughout these dismissals, his expression neutral, waiting for his turn to speak with a patience that Jathara now recognized as tactical. The council moved toward a vote, and Jathara could see it would fail. Humanity would be rejected, sent back to their little corner of space with patronizing words about trying again in a few centuries. She stood abruptly, her injuries protesting the movement, but her voice strong. Counselors, I request permission to speak as a witness to recent events. Counselor Thrain looked surprised but nodded. Commander Jathara, you may address the council. Jathara walked to the center of the chamber and felt all eyes upon her. She was a decorated warrior with 17 campaigns to her name. Her words carried weight among her people and beyond. I have fought beside humans, she began. I have watched them endure conditions that would kill most species represented in this chamber. I have seen them achieve what we consider impossible through nothing but stubborn refusal to quit. Vextar interrupted dismissively. Commander, we respect your service, but a few days of cooperation does not. Silence. Jathara snapped with enough force that the counselor actually stopped talking. You will hear what I have witnessed before you make a decision that could doom us all. She had their attention now, and she used it ruthlessly. The Kresh Raiders who attacked the crossroads deployed a war champion, one of their enhanced warriors. I fought it and lost within minutes because I was exhausted from hours of combat. Humans fought for those same hours and showed no significant decline in capability. She continued. Ambassador Chen faced that same war champion unarmed and defeated it through psychological warfare alone. He explained to the champion exactly how humans hunt, exactly what they are, and the warrior fled rather than face what Chen represented. Counselor Thrain leaned forward, interested despite herself. Explain. Jathara took a breath and organized her thoughts. Humans are persistence predators. They evolved chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies are built for endurance rather than power, for sustained effort rather than explosive speed. This makes them weak in individual combat, she acknowledged. But it makes them terrifying in extended conflicts. They do not tire the way we do. They do not quit the way sane species do. They simply continue forward no matter the cost. She pulled up the tactical recordings from the rescue mission and played them for the council, showing humans navigating through sections with zero atmosphere, extreme radiation, and structural collapse risks that made several counselors gasp in shock. They spent 10 hours moving through conditions that would have killed my warriors in 10 minutes, Jathara said. Not because they are stronger, but because they refuse to accept that something is impossible. They see a problem and they solve it, no matter how long it takes or what it costs them. Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice calm and respectful. Counselors, Commander Jathar is correct about our nature. We are not the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced, but we are very, very persistent. On Earth, we hunted animals that weighed tons using nothing but pointed sticks and patience, he continued. We survived ice ages that killed most other species. We survived plagues that reduced our population by 2/3. We survived our own stupidity when we invented weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We survived, he emphasized, because we don't know how to quit. It's not in our nature. It's not in our culture. It's coded into our DNA from millions of years of being too weak to fight fair, Rodriguez added from his position, still showing signs of radiation treatment. We domesticated the apex predators of our world. Wolves became our companions because we were patient enough to form bonds with them. We turned creatures that should have eaten us into our friends. Chun spoke up, Marcus's cousin with her own perspective. We went to our moon using computers less powerful than the devices in this room. We did it because someone said it was impossible. And humans really don't like being told we can't do something. Counselor Vextar tried again. This is all very dramatic, but it does not change the fact that humanity is technologically primitive. For now, Jathara interrupted. But consider what they will become, given time. They learn rapidly. They adapt instantly. They take ideas from others and improve them, and most importantly, they never stop trying. They will catch up to our technology within decades, she predicted. And then they will surpass us, because while we rest on our achievements, humans will continue pushing forward out of sheer stubbornness. Counselor Thrain asked the question that mattered. Commander, you have fought across 9 systems. Are humans a threat to the Concordat? Jathara considered her answer carefully. Humans are a threat to anyone who makes them an enemy, but they are also fiercely loyal to anyone they consider pack, which is their word for allies or friends. I fought beside them and they treated me as one of their own, she continued. They risked their lives to save me when I fell to the war champion. They risked even more to save hostages they had never met from species they barely knew. Humans form bonds quickly and defend those bonds with everything they have, she said. If we accept them into the Concordat, they will be our most loyal allies. If we reject them, we create an enemy that will never stop growing stronger. Marcus nodded slowly. Commander Jathara speaks truth. Humans value loyalty and cooperation. We want to be part of the galactic community, to learn from you and share what we know. But he added with that calm certainty, we will survive and thrive, regardless of your decision. Humanity has been unwelcome in hostile environments before, and we always find a way forward. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This was not a desperate petition from a weak species begging for protection. This was a courtesy from a species that would succeed with or without their approval. Counselor Thrain spoke after a long pause. I move to approve humanity's petition for Concordat membership, but with the understanding that they must accept certain restrictions and oversight during their integration period. No, Marcus said simply. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs, and Thrain's expression hardened. You dare refuse our offer? I refuse conditional acceptance, Marcus clarified. Either we are full members with all rights and responsibilities, or we decline membership and proceed on our own path. We will not be second-class citizens in an organization we are asked to defend. Jathara felt pride surge through her. This was exactly the kind of stubborn refusal to compromise that defined humanity. And it was exactly what the Concordat needed, even if they did not yet realize it. Rodriguez spoke up, his voice carrying hard-earned authority. We just spent 10 hours rescuing your people from conditions you considered impassable. We did this without asking for anything in return, without demanding concessions. We did it because it was right. Now you want to accept us, but only if we agree to be lesser members? He continued, that's not how humans work. We're either equals or we're not interested. Counselor Vextar sputtered with indignation. You cannot make demands of this council. We are not making demands, Marcus said calmly. We are stating terms. Humanity does not need the Concordat. Counselors, we would prefer to work with you as partners, but we will work around you if necessary. Chan added her voice. We have already made contact with several independent systems who are very interested in human trade, and cooperation with Concordat is not our only option, just our preferred one. Jathar watched the council members absorb this and saw understanding dawn on several faces. Humanity was offering partnership, not submission, and the Concordat could either accept that or watch humans build their own network of allies. Counselor Thrain looked at Jathara. Commander, your assessment? Humanity should be accepted as full members, Jathara said without